We're starting on a very different image this week because this one happens to be going up on a very important day. It is Election Day here in Canada. Presumably the video has gone up at the usual 5 p.m. Atlantic time, which means it's earlier than that everywhere else in the country except Newfoundland. And I'm pretty sure the polls haven't closed anywhere yet. So if you're a Canadian viewer, at least 18 years old, and you haven't voted yet, pause the video, go do that, then come back and watch it. I'm pretty sure I'm not going to be endorsing a political party on my Pokemon YouTube channel, but if you, whoever you are, whatever your story is, if you have thought about the world at all ever, you can probably find that some parties are more aligned with your values, beliefs, and long-term vision for this country than others are. And even if you think that none of the options this election are good, and I know that feeling from past elections, you still almost certainly will be able to find that some of them are better than others. And these things matter a lot at the level of government, where we're electing representatives to hold enormous power to determine the future of this country in a quickly changing world with a lot of chaotic events going on. It's not zero-sum like a VGC game. There are a lot of complicated issues that the government will engage with and a lot of degrees of possible outcomes. And so even if you think that all choices are bad, making a less bad choice can make a real difference to real people's lives in the coming years. So definitely make sure that you have your say. I think in recent years, a lot of people have been complaining about not really feeling like they've had much opportunity to have their say just by voting. Obviously, your one individual voice is proportionally very small, as it should be when millions of other people also get to have their say in a democratic system. But even if you live in a riding that is safe for one party, your vote still counts. The only way that safe riding ever changes is if people show up and vote for someone else. And even if it doesn't work out this time, enough people doing that can send a signal that it's something they can, something that other party can work to build on going forward. And even if you support the dominant safe party in your riding, they only actually win if their supporters actually show up and vote. One individual vote has very little weight, but not voting has no weight. So it is just strictly worse than voting, no matter where in the country you are. It's an incredible thing that we live in a democracy with strong democratic traditions, institutions, and norms. And that means a lot more than just showing up to vote every few years. It means a government that in some ways is accountable to us. It means a legal system that keeps the government in check under the rule of law. It's a very lucky thing that we live in a country that is pulling this off so well right now, but it's also a thing to take seriously. It imposes a certain responsibility on each of us. When we all have a say in the formation of a government, we all have some ownership of the decisions that government makes. And that is something to take very seriously, especially when it looks like the country right next door might not be a democracy much longer. It can be a fragile thing. It's not to be taken for granted. So again, go vote if you haven't yet. The video will still be here afterward. But now it's Draft League time. And we can get up into the matchup pretty quickly in this one. No standings update because it's not ready yet. I'm still waiting on the result of one of the Week 3 sets. You might have hopefully have already gotten that result in the video this past Friday, the Week 3 Friday video, but at time of recording, I haven't made that yet either for the same reason, so we're breaking the timeline a little bit here. I don't quite know everything that happened in Week 3, and that's why there's no standings update. What I can tell you is that the Halifax Masquerainmen are sitting at 1-2 with a game differential of -2. And without having actually checked, I can very confidently assume not in a playoff spot right now. So 5 weeks to turn that around, and it starts with this week's matchup against the Foraging Furrets. A very familiar team name. We, of course, played the Furrets in a really interesting close set last season, but they have a very different look this season. They have a team of Bisharp, Weezing, Staraptor, Skarmory, Alomomola, Girder, Vullaby, Bramblegast, Dedenne, Dugong, and Rhyhorn. And through the first couple weeks of the season, it's mostly been the physical offense and the neutralizing gas that people have to watch out for from this team. So the Staraptor, of course, is able to set Tailwind for the Bramblegast, and with Wind Rider, Bramblegast then is immune to all wind moves, which actually is relevant to my team, as we'll see in a moment. But more importantly, it gets an attack boost from Tailwind as well as that speed boost, and it can hit extremely hard with moves like Power Whip and Poltergeist. We've also seen them try to set up the Skarmory with an Iron Defense Body Press set. I'm honestly not that worried about that because while Skarmory does have a very high defense stat, it's not a very strong Pokemon in double battles overall, and shouldn't be too terribly hard to break through, especially when I have a lot of Pokemon that match up well into it. But it is something to stay alert to as well. The Bisharp, of course, with Defiant, not super relevant here because I don't have Intimidate on my team, but I do have some Pokemon that get things like Charm, which in theory could reduce Bramblegast damage, but one would have to be careful with that kind of thing because, of course, the Bisharp can run Defiant and get attack boosts whenever stats are dropped. It's a very valuable ability to have on a team with a lot of physical attackers because you remove a lot of ways that opponents can nerf your damage. And of course, the Bisharp can also set up with Swords Dance and whatnot. The Weezing is kind of a wrinkle for both teams because, of course, a lot of what I've talked about already is game plans built on the opponent's abilities, like the Wind Rider, Bramblegast, and the Defiant Bisharp. Although, again, the Defiant Bisharp is not important in this specific matchup. But Galarian Weezing is actually very powerful in this format because a lot of Pokemon in this base stat total cap format depend on their abilities to kind of break the game open and stand out from a crowd of not especially strong Pokemon. And that's true on my team, right? Torkoal really likes to be able to activate Drought. Lilligant and Skiploom benefit a lot from Chlorophyll, Hitmonlee from Unburden, Grookey from Grassy Surge, Gastrodon from Storm Drain. My team is no different from others in that it has a lot of abilities that I really want to activate consistently throughout the games, and Weezing makes that difficult. It's also a very bulky Pokemon that some of my Pokemon can remove somewhat easily, but a lot of them can't. Then you have a number of other bulky Pokemon on the Furrets side, Pokemon like a Lomomola, Girder with an Eviolite. Actually, there are a few Pokemon that can benefit a lot from an Eviolite on this team, Girder, Vullaby, and Rhyhorn. The trick, of course, is that only one of them can hold it in a given set, but that's one Pokemon guaranteed hard to remove no matter what. A Lomomola can be very bulky. I think it gets Wish. I don't know. I had a Lomomola in a past season, and I remember its support move pool was not as good as I hoped, but it certainly has some techs available to it. I think it gets Wide Guard. I think Dedenne is actually really interesting on this team. It's your basic fast electric type rodent, but it can be very disruptive with moves like Nuzzle and other kinds of electric type damage and speed control. But Dedenne, unlike the other Pikachu clones, also has that fairy typing, and I actually think the fairy type brings a fair bit to the table for this team that doesn't have a fairy type otherwise. And there were instances where I was thinking about a particular Terra type, maybe like a Terra Dragon into something, to cover for certain weaknesses, and very often I found myself thinking that Dedenne's coverage just made a certain tech that I could bring that much less reliable. So it actually does a fair bit for this team. I don't know that we're super likely to see it. Last season, the Foraging Furrets mostly had a few Pokemon that they were comfortable bringing week in, week out, and judging by the early replays this season, it might be something similar with like Bisharp, Weezing, Staraptor, Bramblegast, maybe Skarmory. I think those are easily the most likely Pokemon, but I wouldn't be surprised at all to see Dedenne as well. The Pokemon I can least explain here is Dugong. I really don't know what that's for, but hey, it's a water and ice type. I think it gets Perish Song, actually. That sounds weird, but I think it is correct. It certainly gets Sheer Cold, but it also has a number of other techs that it can bring, but I don't necessarily know what it brings to the table for this team. That said, in this matchup, I think it looks pretty good for something that I have been saying that I wanted to bring at some point this season, and that is Iron Defense Torkoal. So we are finally giving that a go. My opponent has a lot of physical offense on their team, and I think that Iron Defense Body Press Torkoal, if I get it set up, it's just going to be hard for them to break. Iron Defense giving +2 defense each time it's used can snowball very quickly if Torkoal has support to prevent it from taking a hit on like turn 1. And by going full bulk with this Torkoal already has naturally a very high defense stat. Yeah, I think 1 Iron Defense, and it's already very difficult for my opponent's team to break through, especially if I activate Drought and then Water-type attacks from Dugong and Lomomola are weakened. Although I don't think Torkoal needs Drought. I don't think it's super dependent on Drought this week, so I don't mind too much if I end up throwing it at Weezing early in a game. I've gone Terra Poison because I think it's important that if Torkoal is going to sit on the field for a long time, it's important that Weezing not be able to poison it. So that meant either Steel or Poison for the Terra type, and Poison opens up fewer weaknesses into my opponent's team, given that they have the Girder, and of course Staraptor can easily run fighting coverage. There is one little bit of awkwardness, which of course is that Torkoal can no longer be poisoned once it terastallizes, but it can be burned. I'll have to make sure to play around that if I think that the Weezing might have Will-O-Wisp. But, yeah, overall, I think Torkoal is by far the most likely Pokemon that I terastallize in this matchup, and I think I'm going to have not very much hesitation, at least in Game 1, to lead Torkoal and terastallize it early. The rest of the set is pretty straightforward. I wanted a Fire-type attack for coverage into things like Bramblegast, and any kind of Terra Ghost Pokemon, and I've already explained why I'm not running Heat Wave. Heat Wave might be nice for the spread damage, but Bramblegast is immune to it with Wind Rider. It is a wind move, so I considered some other options. I thought about Burning Jealousy. I thought that might be interesting because, of course, it burns opponents if they've already had a stat boost in the same turn, so I could get Bramblegast with Burning Jealousy the turn that it activated Wind Rider and get a burn on it. The problem with Burning Jealousy is Torkoal is meant to sit on the field for a long time in this matchup, and it doesn't have any special attack investment. Burning Jealousy both is weaker than Flamethrower even before the spread damage modifier, and also has about half the PP. I think exactly half the PP, not very much. So Flamethrower, plain old Flamethrower felt safer here, and that is what I've gone with. Up next, you might think that I would pair Torkoal with Lilligant and get that Lily-Cole combination. I noticed last video, the YouTube automated stuff thinks that I'm talking about an English model named Lily Cole. So let's see if I get her to show up in the mention section again here. But I'm actually not running Lilligant this week. That was my first thought, and then I found that the team building opened up quite a bit once I went in a different direction. I am bringing Skiploom off the bench this week. It gets a few moves that Lilligant doesn't. That's why I drafted it, and the one of interest this week is Rage Powder. Remember when I said that I think Torkoal is very difficult for my opponent to remove if I terastallize and get 1 Iron Defense, but I do have to be a little bit careful about them hitting at turn 1. Well, if I lead Skiploom with Torkoal, even if I don't get my abilities into a Weezing lead, Skiploom still can redirect attacks away from Torkoal. With the Focus Sash, it should be able to redirect attacks from both opponents turn 1, and make it a lot easier for Torkoal to get that Iron Defense. Obviously, Rage Powder is stopped by Safety Goggles or Grass Terra, but people really haven't been bringing those against me so far. I mean, Grass Terra makes sense because that opens up a weakness to Torkoal. Haven't really been running into Safety Goggles either, and this of course is my first time bringing Rage Powder. I really thought there was a chance I would never bring Skiploom this season, so maybe my opponent is caught off guard by it, but regardless, I should be able to redirect at least 1 attack away from Torkoal pretty consistently, and getting that 1 Iron Defense makes a big difference. Running a Focus Sash on the Skiploom, the Eviolite is occupied elsewhere this week, but also Skiploom is not that bulky regardless, and it's weak to a lot of what the opponent can throw at it, like Staraptor, Weezing, and Skarmory all have stabs that are strong into Skiploom, so playing a bulky game with it just didn't seem like the move. If I do get my Chlorophyll, then I can also click Sleep Powder to create openings for Torkoal by, of course, putting opponents to sleep. And I also have Encore, so if they try to protect around my setup, I can lock them into that, make Torkoal's job that much easier. Finally, to avoid having no attacks, I do have Leaf Storm on the Skiploom. It's obviously not going to do very much damage, especially when my opponent has a lot of grass resists, but there are some situations where it's important just to have any damage at all. Since I'm running a Focus Sash on the Skiploom, I didn't worry about investing in bulk. I don't remember exactly what the speed EVs are for, but I think it's just to make sure that it's faster than things like Bisharp and Dugong in a neutral speed control situation, so no Sun and no Tailwind on either side. And I saw no value in a defensive Terra type when I'm not engineering it to take hits anyway. Pretty sure my opponent doesn't have Fake Out on their team unless I missed something, so I've just gone with Terra Grass, because the only value that I could see in my Terra at all was maybe conceivably there's some edge case position where I want that extra damage on Leaf Storm. Up next, like I said, a lot of the focus here is creating openings for Torkoal to set up, so Grookey helps with that in a couple of ways. It gives me Fake Out this week, and it also, of course, gives me Grassy Terrain, as long as Weezing doesn't prevent that. So Torkoal already has the leftovers. Double recovery from leftovers and grassy terrain can be very powerful, especially when Torkoal is full special bulk this week and boosting its defense, so it should be able to take hits very well with some setup. So just Grassy Surge alone I thought made Grookey worth bringing to this matchup, even though it's actually a tough matchup for Grookey specifically. Its main job here is to bring those two supports to help out Torkoal. I have gone 4 attacks, but Eviolite is strictly better than Assault Vest because it boosts both defenses. Even so, Woodhammer, of course, hits very hard in grassy terrain, only so hard when it's just a Grookey and not a grown-up Rillaboom, but actually, we've seen it do big damage back in week 2. And while my opponent does have a lot of grass resist, it's still a pretty safe stab to throw at them in a lot of positions. That said, Knockoff gives me some more coverage into Bramblegast. It can remove an Eviolite from whatever unevolved Pokemon they want to throw at me, make that significantly less bulky. It can remove something like Leftovers or Citrus Berry from Skarmory. So there are a number of situations, or Weezing, there are a number of situations where Knockoff might be useful. U-turn lets me pivot Grookey out and bring in another support in certain positions. Grookey is, all my Pokemon are EV'd for grassy terrain recovery this week, and then mostly the rest is put into either offense or physical defense, because again, my opponent has noticeably a lot of physical offense on their team. But Grookey is also EV'd to, I think, be faster than uninvested Dugong. I don't know that Dugong is likely to run speed EVs. I don't know that it isn't, but I think there's a good chance that if it shows up, it's just bulky or, yeah, just bulky. So if I'm right about that and I do see the Dugong, then I can land a big wood hammer into it with Grookey being faster. And Terra Steel, so a lot of my Pokemon this week have Terra types that prevent them from being poisoned. That's actually in part a coincidence, as Poison and Steel are also just pretty good defensive Terra types into this matchup, although in Torkoal's case, the poison typing was very intentional to cover for poison. But my opponent has Flying, Ice, and their own poison type attacks that they can throw at Grookey, and Terra Steel just gives it easy cover for all of those. I did also bring my other Fake Out user. I have double Fake Out this week. Hitmonlee is here. Again, with exactly the kind of EV spread that I talked about. The HP set up for grassy terrain recovery. And then it hits very hard, and the rest dumped into physical defense. Hitmonlee is honestly a little bit iffy into Pokemon like Bramblegast, Skarmory, and Weezing. I thought at some points about not bringing it, but again, given that so much of my game plan is about setting Torkoal up, I think double Fake Out is really nice here. And I don't, of course, have to bring Hitmonlee to every game. Terra Poison, again, it helps to cover for, well, it helps to cover for the Fairy type attacks from Dedenne, as I mentioned. It also makes Hitmonlee neutral to flying attacks from the likes of Staraptor and Skarmory, and unlike something like Terra Steel or Rock, it's not then weak to Skarmory's close combat. And as an added bonus, it prevents Hitmonlee from being poisoned if I Terastallize. Again, I think it's far more likely that I Terastallize Torkoal in any given game this set, but I do have the option available. Close combat deletes Bisharp from existence. It hits, and also Pokemon like Dugong and Rhyhorn, and it gets good damage into the likes of Skarmory, Girder, Alomomola. Obviously, it's resisted by Dedenne, and well, it does hit Staraptor pretty hard, except they can Intimidate. Bramblegast is immune. But again, I have Knockoff, so I can remove items that make various bulky Pokemon bulkier on their team, and also I have that coverage for Bramblegast. Finally, coaching is a little bit thrown in. Obviously, if I coach Grookey, that Woodhammer hits that much harder, but also I can use it to give an extra defense boost to Torkoal and set up that much more quickly. Even as I'm saying it out loud right now, I am kind of second-guessing whether it's worthwhile, but you know, I reserve the right to make changes before I actually play the set. That's what it is right now. I also might change Hitmonlee's item. I think that Unburden is really valuable in this matchup, and while the Grassy Seed is nice for boosting Hitmonlee's defense, because again, the opponent has a lot of physical offense, I'm not sure that I want to rely that much on bringing Hitmonlee with Grookey, and Grookey's ability definitely activating, given that we're facing a Weezing, so I might change it to a normal gem before the actual set, but I'll let you know if I do that. Now, I'm 4 Pokemon in, and one big thing that I'm missing is damage into Weezing. Torkoal and Skiploom are not super dependent on their abilities this week. Grookey is largely here for its ability, but so the Weezing can still be disruptive to some of my game plans, but also the last 3 Pokemon that I covered have no significant damage into it. And even Torkoal doesn't have a lot because Weezing resists the body press. And sure, it doesn't resist the flamethrower, and it's weaker on the special defense side, but that flamethrower is of course uninvested, and I don't get the sun up if I'm facing Weezing. So how do I get damage into Weezing is the question for the next 2 Pokemon, and it starts with Gastrodon. That's another thing that I'm second guessing as I talk this through. I have gone with a bulkier Gastrodon. In past weeks, I thought originally about bulkier Gastrodon, and then I ran some calcs and went more offensive, and that's gotten mixed results. No, wait, I calced this actually. Gastrodon never, if it's specially defensive Weezing, which I think makes a lot of sense into my team, Gastrodon never one-shots it with Earth Power without, a boost or something. But I think I did get just enough special attack EVs to make sure that it's a 2-hit KO. And then otherwise, Gastrodon is here to be bulky and take hits from the various physical threats on their team. So actually, I did calc this already. It should be fine. I'm becoming convinced that I should just run Rindo Berry on Gastrodon most weeks, especially after it got blown up by that Seed Bomb Donphan last week, and I just didn't see that coming. Obviously, I do want to be more flexible than that and not just keep bringing the same item over and over, but unless I have a really good reason to use a different item, my instinct is Rindo Berry right now. And of course, this team does have the Bramble Ghast, so grass-type damage is a very real threat. Terra Poison on Gastrodon, not for any particular groundbreaking reason. It also covers that ground weakness, can't be poisoned, good, pretty solid neutral defensive Terra type into a lot of my opponent's team. Earth Power, Muddy Water, and Ice Beam is pretty solid coverage into their team. I'm always looking to see whether I can afford to drop one of those, but I mean, the Ice Beam is good for picking up the likes of Staraptor and Brambleghast. And what is the Muddy Water for this week? I don't remember, but there's some good reason that I have it. But Earth Power is the real star here, hitting Weezing and Bisharp very hard. So Gastrodon, I've talked about leading Skiploom with Torkoal and having Rage Powder available to help Torkoal get set up. I also have the option, if I think I'm going to see a Weezing lead, to just lead Gastrodon or the next Pokemon with Torkoal and threaten damage into the Weezing immediately. And that's another way to create openings for Torkoal to set up, but also I really need that damage into Weezing after those first 4 Pokemon that didn't have very much. And that pattern continues. I was originally thinking about benching this next Pokemon, but again, I want to make sure I have enough damage into Weezing, so I am bringing Galarian Slowking this week. Galarian Slowking has been really funny to bring in this league because I think like the last 2 or 3 weeks, I didn't really have a... in week 2 I did. The last 2 weeks, I didn't really have a Trick Room game plan in mind, and originally I wasn't even going to bring Trick Room on this Pokemon. And then inevitably at some point I go, well, I have Torkoal, I have Gastrodon, Slowking itself is very slow. In this case, my opponent has a Tailwind mode that they're very likely to bring. Trick Room is just so good in some positions. Even if it's not core to my game plan, I should probably have it just in case. And so I do. I have the Surf option to set up Gastrodon once again. I've been bringing that a lot, but it's been very effective so far this season. But that does mean that Slowking's only safe, consistent attack with this set is Psychic, which is extremely strong into Weezing, not so strong into Bisharp or Skarmory. I did think about running Flamethrower on this set. In fact, I originally had that penciled in instead of Protect. But I think I can probably get away with not having it. We'll see if that really works out. But I think that Slowking is likely to be on the field next to Gastrodon or Torkoal, and those Pokemon already have ways of threatening the likes of Bisharp and Skarmory. I already have fire coverage on Torkoal, and I have that Earth Power on Gastrodon, and come to think of it, this is probably what the Muddy Water is for, getting that decent neutral damage into Skarmory. So I think I can get away with no Flamethrower on Slowking. Hopefully I'm not burned for that, if you will. But yeah, I do like Surf for the spread damage, but also, of course, to give Gastrodon a Storm Drain boost, especially when I'm bringing bulky Gastrodon. That gives it a way to still hit hard. And if I get the Trick Room up, I mean, we've seen that sweep pretty effectively at times in this league. It's been one of the more successful things that my team has done so far. Mental Herb, of course, to prevent them from taunting the Trick Room. Terra Dark to cover for Dark attacks from Bisharp, Ghost attacks from Brambleghast. It does open a little bit of a weakness to Dedenne and Girder, but I still think it's probably Slowking's best defensive Terra type in this matchup. And Poison or Steel in this case would, of course, share a weakness with the Poison typing that Slowking already has. And nothing crazy in the EV spread here. Set up for good grassy terrain recovery, bunch of physical bulk because my opponent has a lot of physical offense, and then enough special attack to probably not just delete Weezing immediately, but hopefully threaten some good damage into it. So that's the team. The game plan is try to set Torkoal up and win with that. But then I have another offensive option with the Gastrodon and Slowking. But this is very much maybe the most Torkoal-centered game plan that you'll see all season. And all that's left is to get into the games and see how it goes. We're here, and the streak is broken. This is not the first set played this week. I think it's the second. Weezing, Bisharp, Staraptor, Girder, Alomomola, Dedenne. No Bramblegast. I really thought, with the way the Furrets were playing earlier in the season, and what is this browser sometimes? I wonder what this looks like on the recording. It's not displaying properly for me. Looks fine on the recording. Okay. With the way the Furrets were playing so far this season and the way they played last season, I really thought we might see the Bramblegast every week, or close enough. That makes the Rindoberry on Gastrodon feel not quite as good, although Dedenne probably gets Grass Knot. I'm not certain. Anyway, the point is, we do see the Bisharp. So that makes things the Bisharp doesn't make things tricky. The Weezing makes things tricky, but I knew it was likely to be here. I think I'm just going to do my intended Game 1 lead of Torkoal and Skiploom. And I do want damage into Weezing, so I probably have to bring at least one of Gastrodon and Slowking. Maybe I should have run Colberberry Slowking to help cover for the Bisharp, or even something like a knockoff Girder. I'll bring Gastrodon to this game. It's pretty good into Alomomola and Dedenne and Bisharp and Weezing. And do I want to mix and match with Grookey, or do I want to just bring Slowking? I think I can bring Grookey to this one. It's not bad into Dedenne and Alomomola. Let's see. Alright, Torkoal, Skiploom lead against Staraptor and Weezing. So I don't get my abilities, turn 1. That's okay. I'm a little bit, I don't know if I talked about it in the builder section, I don't remember, but I'm a little bit concerned about a final Gambit from Staraptor, and that's all the more reason to have redirection on the board. And a big part of why I switched from Lilligant to Skiploom while I was building this team. So I'm going to go straight for Iron Defense. Weezing could have Poison Gas. I'm going to Terra Poison. Like I said, we're Terrestrializing Torkoal aggressively, no problem, this set. I'm going to Terra Poison, Iron Defense, and Rage Powder. Okay, it's just a Brave Bird into Skiploom, knocks it down to Sash. We see Destiny Bond from the Weezing. Okay, I didn't expect that. Gonna have to be a little bit careful about that. I'm gonna go for another Iron Defense. And... the Weezing could have Will-O-Wisp, though. Well, I think I just have to live with that, right? I knew that was a possibility. And I have leftovers on Torkoal. Eventually, I could probably get Grassy Terrain up. I think I'm just going to Iron Defense and Rage Powder again. I mean, Staraptor ought to be faster than Skiploom, since I don't have Chlorophyll active. Yep, we redirect another Brave Bird into Skiploom. That's a funny crit. What does the Weezing do? Taunt. Okay, so I only get the 1 Iron Defense right now, but that still ought to do a lot. 322 stat, I don't know. That seems likely to be good. Now I throw this Fizz-Def Gastrodon at the problem. I'm just going to go Flamethrower and Earth Power into Weezing. It could Terra. Maybe I should Protect through this turn. Too late. Okay, they Brave Bird into Torkoal. It actually does a fair bit, but... Oh, the Destiny Bond. Oh, no, they're gonna get Torkoal with this. Oh, that's not good. That's, yeah, okay. I said I had to take the Destiny Bond seriously, and then I didn't. That's potentially a game-losing blunder, as I have 2 Pokemon left against their 3. It would probably be easier to turn this around if I had Slowking, because I could surf into my own Gastrodon, but instead... Well, Alomomola doesn't look very threatening in this position. It's interesting that the Drought goes up before Torkoal faints, by the way. I'm going to fake... The Staraptor hasn't shown Protect yet. Be good to know if they have it. I'm going to fake out and Ice Beam that slot. Terra Grass Alomomola. Okay. So I can't just land a big Wood Hammer into that. They Terra Blast Gastrodon. The Rindoberry gets me through this turn, but now, of course, it's consumed. That also still did a ton of damage, even through the Rindoberry. And it's Bisharp last, so I think I just lose to that, unless I have a way to get rid of Alomomola. It's faster than Gastrodon. No, I don't see a way to win this game. Maybe I get the mother of all U-turn crits here, but I don't think so. I doubt that does enough. No. Even a crit does not that much there. Okay, so it's going to be a loss in game 1. I really just blundered badly attacking into that Destiny Bond, but I might be okay if I just don't do that next game. So, yeah. And now that I've seen the Terra Grass Alomomola, I think I'm going to bring the same lead into Game 2, but I'm going to bring Gastrodon and Slowking in the back this time. Okay, can't dwell on the Destiny Bond KO. That was really silly of me, but we have to move on from that. It showed Taunt and Destiny Bond. I think those were the only two moves it showed. So it might not have Will-O-Wisp. They lead Staraptor Wheezing again. I'm just going to Iron in Defense and Rage Powder again. But yeah, we have to be way more careful about attacking Wheezing with Torkoal. Okay, they go straight to Bisharp. They knock Skiploom out this turn, but I get my 1 Iron Defense again. I'll go Gastrodon. I forgot to Terra Poison that turn, but I'll do it now. The Bisharp could Terra... Actually, I'll just protect Torkoal this turn. See if we get a Terra out of the Bisharp. I'm down to Earth Power Wheezing. I'm not as bothered if they get a Destiny Bond KO into Gastrodon. I don't think Earth Power will KO anyway. It would with a crit, but yeah, this turn it doesn't. They also have used their Destiny Bond now, so I think it has a chance to fail if they just go for it again immediately. Bisharp didn't Terra. I'm going to Terra Poison, again, to cover for something like Poison Gas or Toxic. I'm going to target a Body Press into Bisharp. I'm going to go target an Ice Beam into Wheezing to cover for Switch. They Throat Chop Torkoal, doesn't do very much. They Sludge Bomb Torkoal, good thing I Terrestrialized. Ice Beam KOs Wheezing, no Destiny Bond KO this game, and Body Press KOs Bisharp. They have Staraptor and what in the back? Is it a Alomomola again? It is, okay. We know it's Terra Grass. So Gastrodon is afraid of that, but Torkoal is not. The Terra Blast did enough through the Rindo Berry that it will KO Gastrodon here. But with Slowking in the back, I think that ought to be okay. I'm going to protect Torkoal, cover for something like a Final Gambit from... I'm actually just going to double protect this turn. Terra Normal, Helping Hand. And Staraptor's going for what? Like a double edge into Torkoal? Yeah, okay. Well, hopefully we take those. I think I'm down to... I was going to say Muddy Water, fish for an accuracy drop, but I think that's silly. Let's just double target the Staraptor this turn. Just in case it lands a big crit into Torkoal or something. It doesn't need a crit. Okay, that just KOs. Good information. But I think Slowking should be able to win the game from here. No reason not to go for Trick Room this turn. And I'll protect Gastrodon. Actually, I probably just needed to... Yeah, I just needed to attack Staraptor. I actually lose. Nope, I don't lose. I do lose. Yeah, I do lose. Because they haven't Terra'd yet. Have they Terra'd yet? They went for Terra Blast without... Oh yeah, they Terra Normal. Okay. Alright, I should be fine then. I'm making such silly plays today, but most likely I take game 2 here by the skin of my teeth. But I have to be thinking about adjustments for game... Yeah, that special defense drop ought to seal it. I mean, the Terra Blast isn't doing enough damage anyway. I need to be thinking about adjustments for game 3. Because this is still pretty sloppy. So we know that Terra Normal, Helping Hand boosted Double Edge knocks out Torkoal from high HP after 1 Iron Defense. But I don't have the means to guarantee a second Iron Defense. I think I just have to go Skiploom again. I think I just have to bring the same 4 Pokemon. It is tricky because Fake Out Pressure would actually be really nice here, but I still need that damage into Wheezing from Pokemon that aren't Torkoal. I think if I'm going to get a second Iron Defense, then the key might be to set Trick Room after Skiploom goes down. So I think I'm going to bring the same 4 Pokemon, but look to bring Slowking in before Gastrodon this time. But I don't really see another way. So it's Staraptor and Alomomola lead this time. I don't think the Staraptor has ever switched moves, so it could be Scarfed. But I think Skiploom will still be faster. Yeah. Yeah, this is fast Skiploom. It's a little bit risky. I kind of want to click Sleep Powder into the Staraptor. Let's just try to make a play. I missed! No! Okay, the U-turn Skiploom, though. I got bailed out by that. Dedenne, okay. Terrablast knocks out Skiploom. Dedenne is... What is Dedenne threatening? Well, we'll find out. I'm going to try to set Trick Room here. Protect. Trick Room. Nuzzle into Slowking, that's fine. What does Alomomola do? Liquidation into Torkoal. That shouldn't do too much anyway. I'll try to get that second Iron Defense because I'm wary of Staraptor in the back, and Psychic Dedenne. I don't know if Sludge Bomb, of course. Okay, 2-hit KO. Liquidation's not doing much in the sun. They have Endeavor. This is such a tricky team that I'm dealing with here. Alright, I'm going to protect Torkoal to get a bit of recovery and go for a Psychic into Dedenne, hopefully not fully paralyzed. They protect. Okay, fair enough. Honestly, I'm down to go for +6 defense here. Still try to knock out Dedenne. They switch out to Bisharp on the Psychic, so that works out nicely for them. Flip turn Alomomola out. Is Staraptor coming in? It is. Last turn of Trick Room. They probably have Protect on Bisharp. I'm not so confident that they have it on Staraptor because this Staraptor has been playing like it's choice for the entire set. I'm going to double Staraptor here. They didn't bring Weezing to this game. I can Terra Dark the Slowking, but it might be better to save my Terra for Gastrodon. Yeah, okay. Double Staraptor. They could have Quick Attack. They knock out Slowking with a Sucker Punch, but Staraptor just drops to a Body Press. Trick Room is over, and my Trick Room Setter is gone. I'm gonna go I'll go Gastrodon here. You see Dedenne. I think I'm just gonna Terra Poison Gastrodon immediately. They probably have a Grass Attack on this, and we know that they have... Actually, they just used their Terra, so they can't Terrasilize Alomomola. Let's just Body Press Bisharp and scout for a Grass Attack from Dedenne, although there's not really any reason to Terrasilize Torkoal at this point. They double into Gastrodon. We knock out Bisharp. And then Alomomola should really not be very threatening. I think at this point, actually, I can Terrasilize Torkoal to... I mean, it doesn't matter. It has physical water attacks. I'm going to do it anyway, though. Body Press Alomomola. Even if they have a Grass Attack, I have the Rindo Berry, and I'll Earth Power Dedenne. This was a tough one, but I think I should win from here. They Endeavor Torkoal, sure. Terra Blast, that does 8%. Yeah, they got me with the Terra Grass Alomomola in game 1, but then they never saved their Terra for it in the other games. And here I'll just Body Press and Earth Power. They Liquidation, but I have the Storm Drain on the board. I wasn't even thinking about that. I played this pretty slothfully, and my opponent had a ton of tricks up their sleeve, so this was a scary set. But the Halifax Masquerainmen do pull out the 2-1 win, and that means our win-loss record is back to 500, though we're still just barely underwater in game differential. But of course, the win-loss record matters more. 2-2 at the halfway point in the season. It is a tough schedule the rest of the way, and I mean, every set so far has been a nail biter. So nothing's going to be easy from here, but Hey, still alive for now. 500 halfway through the season. There are worse positions, and we're just going to try to come back even stronger next week.